Rohan Patel, comic book movie. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I love the show so far, and like,
Oh, great.
it's a really unique visual. So I saw that. I know you worked on Lord of the Rings, obviously, and you worked on Spider Verse as well. So, like, when you're creating like this sort of, you're recreating sort of like how people view a media, because it's like no one, I think, from my generation has really watched the show quite like What If, nor had they seen something like Spider Verse when it came out. So, like, how's the process when you're like sort of like creating this whole sort of new visual medium? Like, what's your like the behind the scenes process like when you're approaching a project like this?
You know, that is actually like it's a really good question. And to be honest, I'm not even sure myself. You know, we artists, we all have our own kind of personal taste and our own personal styles. Um, and at the same time, we're given a directive by a director or a producer. And in this particular one, it was we want to do this show. We don't want it to be Spider Verse. We don't want it to be um, old school Marvel animation. We want something different, but we're really loving the artwork of J.C. Leyendecker and the early 20th century American illustrators. That's a great place to start out. Let's see where that takes us, and then we just start, and then um, I know that for myself, like the I mean, I'm an illustrator and I'm a painter where I tend to go where I'm going to usually land just naturally. Um, and the first pass at this show actually was not where we ended up. We started out with a painting and a final look style that was way more kind of impressionistic, like loose kind of almost concept art painting style. And we realized really quickly that didn't work with the characters because the characters were this kind of J.C. Leyendecker looking style, really hard edged and very graphic and bold. And our painting style was a little bit too loose and a little bit too mushy in some ways, too feathery. Um, and so we said, okay, we need to go like way more modern and more graphic. Let's try something more graphic. Um, Partly because that's what comic books tend to be. They tend to be a lot more graphic. Let's get like more contrast in it, and let's get like I really like personally. I loved the look of the noticeable brushstrokes from the impressionistic style that we started out with, but it's like let's figure out a way to do that, but have it be more hard edged. So our one of our designers, Christina Bardazarian is her name. Um, Fantastic painter, and she ended up becoming our stylist for the show. And she kind of came up with this paint style, and the two of us kind of thought of it together, but she's the one who figured it out. Um, and it's this kind of almost like graphic impressionism is what I'll call it. It's broken color, broken brushstrokes that are creating a lot of different like graphic shapes inside flat shapes, but they're really hard edged. They're really graphic. There's like raking lines and there's geometric shapes in there. It's kind of like almost like a texture that goes over everything, but it's very much infused into into everything. There's weird lines that float against objects. Like everything's got outlines that are like floating against the edges, and it's all very much. There's a formula to it, but there's also just a lot of like just it's based on taste. Um, and it's also a way of creating a lot of detail without painting a lot of stuff. So that that kind of style exploration, I mean, it's nothing new. Like you do that on every animated project. You find a cool looking style that just kind of makes sense for the storyline. For this one, like a cute, kid style TV animation didn't seem right. We needed something with a little more gravity to it, a little more modern and a little more adult. So this painting style kind of came out of it.
So yeah, no, yeah, it looks absolutely. It's just a beautiful show, and it's
Oh,
and you also have the unique challenge here where you don't get to settle into like a consistent visual look for every episode. You're starting with Agent Carter, then it goes into T'Challa, Star Lord, and then Nick Fury, and then the new episode is about Doctor Strange. So
yeah.
how is it like trying to go back to their like most famous MCU moments and then sort of like turning its head on there and then setting the tone from there?
Well, strangely enough, the goal is to have a unified style. At the same time, we are, like you said, we're doing these extremely different genres. Sci-fi versus like the Guardians of the Galaxy is clearly sci-fi. The Captain Carter might as well be a history film. Could be a documentary style from World War II in the 40s. So, but in terms of the style of artwork, the goal is to have it be consistent. At the same time, we've got different vendors working on these different episodes, so they're naturally going to have a little bit different look just because it's a different group of artists. And I'm okay with that. I think it actually gives a certain amount of breadth to the whole project. It doesn't just end up all looking the same. So our Captain Carter episode, most of it was done by a studio in France. And the T'Challa Star-Lord episode was done by that same studio. The third episode, the Whodunit one, was done by a studio in Quebec. The fourth episode, the Doctor Strange one, was done by a studio in Sydney, Australia. So it is a different group of artists, different. But again, we are trying to keep it all unified, and like everything that they do comes back to us, and we literally look at every single frame. We give notes, we send it back, we do drawovers, we paint, we fix stuff, we paint stuff, we send it back to them. I mean, we're doing all the lead design. We design every set. We design every location. We design the color schemes. We do hundreds and hundreds of little paintings, these little movie moments to keep everybody in line. Again, it's a monstrous project. Right now I think we're like on our fifth vendor worldwide to do all this stuff.
Absolutely insane. And it's crazy how many people work on these things. And like you said, it takes a long time to do something like this.
Yeah.
And you worked in live action space with stuff like Lord of the Rings, and then you've also worked in animation. So how long, like early, typically do you get a project, and how long does it typically take to realize before you get it to a point where, like, you're collaborating with like Kevin and the team and everyone? So how long is that whole process?
I mean, this project is like it's short. Let's put it that way. I'm used to. This is my first TV show. I've worked in features my whole career, and features have a luxury of having an extremely long timeline to create the stuff that you got to create. In just pure numbers, like Prince of Egypt. We were building a brand new studio at DreamWorks. I started on day one. I was there until the very, very end. It took 4 years. We created an hour and a half of content. It took 4 years to do it. We're doing a 20-minute or 22-minute average episode. We have 6 weeks per department to do this stuff. And it's taken about a little over 2.5 years to do the entire season. But so think about that. The whole season, that's about 5 hours of content. It was 10 episodes, almost at a half an hour in 2.5 years. Compare that with 4 years to do an hour and a half of content for a feature. I mean, that's just a ridiculous amount of content in an incredibly short period of time. So I usually would want to have like good, 4 or 5 months of lead time to do the visual development necessary to get going, develop a style, design sets, and get going. We had 1 week. I had 1 week of lead time before, like, I got the job. 1 week later, we're in production going. And I mean, and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane, but we did it. And honestly, we had to redo a lot of stuff too because of that. But that's just, that's how it works. We're also building in studio at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have anything. We just had a couple of offices and, some scripts.
I get it. Oh, well, thank you so much, Paul. This has been so cool. Thank you. I really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see the rest of the season.
All right. My pleasure. Thanks.